Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome listeners to Big Little Small Talk, the segment where we go out and talk to someone interesting in the community, and there's no one more interesting than your local publican. So our local pub here in Greenmount reopened in 2008, the year that my husband and I moved to Greenmount, and it's had a few things, lives over the years, but at the moment we're lucky enough to have fantastic publicans by the name of Brendon and Fiona, and I've got Brendon here as my guest on Big Little Small Talk today. So welcome, Brendon.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, now this is a really, really interesting story, the Greenmount Hotel, and we'll talk about it in a little while, but what I do want to talk about is your childhood. So you grew up living at the Strand.
I did, yep. My father was the manager at the Strand from 1971 onwards, the year I was born. So basically that was our second home.
And where did you live? You didn't live on the premises?
No, we lived in Mount Lofty, but we spent most of our time at the Strand.
So tell me about being a child of the cinema. How does,
Well, it was fantastic, really. We embraced with the silver screen and all the actors, and you grow up with a great love for the craft and movies in general.
Right. So would you spend all of your afternoons after school and all the weekends, and did you have jobs as kids?
Mum and Dad were pretty strict on us, so we'd go to grandma's and that whilst they were working when we were younger, but as we got older we got jobs at the cinema and worked there tearing tickets, and then I became a projectionist there.
Do you is that a trade to become a projectionist?
It was a trade prior to my time. Mm-hmm. So my father, John, he did an apprenticeship, but it evolved out of that into something less, I wouldn't say less skilled, but I'd say less strict as far as getting into the industry. It became a job where you had to know someone to get into the industry.
So what are your memories of sort of the great films of that era? Well,
lots of memories actually. I remember being involved with the radio stations and doing giveaways and people on stage, and cinemas were a completely different experience back then. When the Strand was 550 seats and one screen, and I think the biggest movie we ever had there was Crocodile Dundee, that filled up the cinema for a good 10 months and played for 12 months, the one movie. So,
right. What was your favourite movie as a kid?
Well, that's a good question actually. There's so many because we grew up there, so you just had a love for all types of movies, but I'd have to say potentially Jaws at the time.
Yes, it was groundbreaking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really, yeah. The jobs that you had as kids, what were some of the things that you had to do? You had to tear the tickets?
We had to tear the tickets. We had to show people to their seats using the torch and so forth when we were little kids, and then as I got older I was trained as a projectionist and went upstairs and did that.
So what was the time period that your family was there again? It was from 71?
1971 through to, it became the new 5-screen format that it is now, in about 94, and I worked there as a projectionist from then, and then moved down to the Gold Coast and worked at the Gold Coast Cinemas as a projectionist.
Okay, so it was what you were...
So Dad was there until he retired, yeah.
Okay. So if someone came into the Strand Theatre and asked for a $20 pack of matches in the 70s, what did that mean?
Well, it was actually the hotel next door. So the Crown Hotel next door, they would have $20 box of matches, and you would get a key to a room, which those rooms are actually above the Strand Cinema, and you would potentially have a lady of the night there.
Right, so that's what... so did you ever... Oh, well, they didn't come into the
No, I was
Strand.
A little bit young. I was a little bit young for that.
No, I'm not asking you whether you had a lady of the night, Brendon. So that was quite. You think that was true? That's a.
I do believe it is true. Yeah. Dad told me it was true. So Dad also played in the band Johnny King and the Kingmen, which would play at the Crown fairly often as a cabaret band, and the family that owned the Strand and still owns the building today, which is the Souris family, they own the Crown Hotel and what became Five Star, but I do believe it was the Chronicle Arcade next to that. So they own the whole corner there.
Okay, so speaking of the Crown Hotel, so I do believe that Emma Miller, who is largely known as the mother of the Labor Party, died in the Crown Hotel. And does she frequent cinema number 2 at the Strand Hotel?
I have been told that the cinemas are haunted, and when I was a kid and I got to do relief management for Dad on a Monday night, and when I say kid, I think I was 17 by then, I'd have to lock up at night, and it was quite an eerie place.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did you see the ghost of Emma Miller?
No, I've never seen a ghost yet.
You didn't see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. There's plenty of time.
They do tell me that the pub here is haunted as well, but I'm usually fairly tired by the time I go to bed, so I haven't encountered that one either.
Well, I'll write that down because I do want to hear about the ghost of the Green Mount. But just staying with the cinema for a little bit, I was reading somewhere that the Strand was named the Strand because the building had ST. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know that one. ST.
Well, apparently the building had ST on it, but nobody knew what the ST stand for, so that's why they called it the Strand Theatre.
Oh, right. No, I'm not sure about that one. I'd have to ask Chris Souris about that.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. So there was, back in the day, there was 2 major cinemas, the Strand and the Coronet.
Coronet, yes.
Whereabouts was the Coronet?
Coronet was where the Toowoomba Sports Club is now.
And was there a major competition between you?
A little bit, but we were friendly rivalry. I think it was. We were all friends with everybody that run both lots of cinemas. Yeah. Obviously, the Coronet people. So, but there was a little bit of controversy when the I would say that film rights to certain movies were getting put into one cinema and not the other, and the cinema industry overall in that era was fairly corrupt and vicious business. I think probably, if you're allowed to say this, but Village at the time, I think back in the late 90s, was on 4 corners as Australia's most corrupt company. So, and that was all to do with movies getting preference at one cinema to another. So the private cinemas struggled to get product.
Do you ever go to the cinema now?
I haven't been for a while because I never get to go away from the pub, but I am dying to go see the new Elvis movie because a friend of mine's in it, Renee. So it's.
Have to get there. Did you ever have any aspirations of going into the film industry yourself?
Not really. Not in anything other than as a projectionist in cinema, to run cinemas. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we go then from the cinema to the pub? But just before I go off the cinema, I remember that there used to be a pinball parlour next to the Strand Theatre in the day.
Yep.
How much time did you spend in there?
Well, a fair bit, because my dad used to run that as well. So Dad managed the whole corner, so the Crown Hotel, the Strand and 5 Star. So as kids we had the keys to all the Space Invaders and all the machines that first came out, and we'd spend a lot of time in there.
Oh, wow. So who else is in the family besides you?
Myself and my sister, Melinda. Mm-hmm. She's 3 years younger than me.
Has she gone into a world of...
No. She sort of run a separate show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So then how do we go from being a projectionist at the Strand? You moved down the Gold Coast.
Yep. So projectionist was a very high-paid job at the time. Projectionist would earn probably about 30% more than a cinema manager, and you'd have loadings for each screen. If you worked in an 8-cinema complex, as they started to grow, you'd have 80% loading on your wage, and it was, for back in that period of time, it was extremely well paid position. At that particular point in time, the unions decided to change things a little bit, and gave the other 49 staff in the cinemas $1 pay rise to vote for the projectionist wages to be dropped. So it went from $80, $90, $100,000 a year job to a $34,000 a year job overnight. So at that point I resigned.
From the family company?
On principle, yeah.
Or from down the Gold Coast?
Yeah, I was working at that time for another big cinema company, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what happened then? What did you decide to do?
Went into the steel industry as a boilermaker and did that for many years, and recently completed a Bachelor of Communication at USQ.
Okay, so tell me about going to university as an, I won't say older person,
No,
as a
that's
mature
fair
age,
comment.
mature age student. Were you the first in your family to go to university?
I am the first in my immediate family, yep.
So tell me about that. Tell me about the experience of going to university.
I found it thoroughly enjoyable, and most lecturers are my age, so it made some friendships there, and it's good. I'm still friends with 2 or 3 professors at the university. I speak to them on a regular basis, and they've been a wealth of help and knowledge going into a marketing career.
What was your intention? Like, had you, at this stage, what sort of work were you doing that you thought that you needed to have a marketing degree?
My intention really wasn't to have a marketing degree, it was to help out my son and go to university with him. So I decided to leave my job in Brisbane and move to Toowoomba and go to USQ and be a poor uni student for a while with him.
What was your son studying?
He was studying the same degree, so both of us were in Bachelor of Communication.
And how did he go? How was his results? You got all the HDs and he got all the fours.
He found that university wasn't for him after 3 months, so I was stuck at university by myself.
That's an incredible story, Brendon. That you really had it been bubbling around in the back of your mind that you thought maybe one day I want to go to university, or there's so much that I think that I need to know?
No, not really. I just felt that I needed to do something for my son at the time, and went along and just had a look, basically. But yeah, found that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did a little bit of film, TV studies, and shifted my degree over to mainly PR and marketing.
Okay. What type of work were you doing at that stage?
Heavy steel construction, so working, manufacturing, cantilevered rollout base for high-rise construction.
Okay. So you go off to university, get this degree, and then what happened after that?
Partway through the degree, I started working for Darren Cardiff, who is a friend of mine, and at the time he had Pritab, a mining accommodation company, and had moved into some other products, so I started working for him doing marketing, and partway through that we came up with the idea to run a sponsorship initiative which we called Get Chopped. Alright,
now we're going to go on to Get Chopped in a minute, but that's a pretty big leap to go from working in the steel industry to a marketing, sort of a relatively white collar type. So tell me about the leap with that.
Well, I just basically did it for my son and then decided I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Once I was there at university, professors like Andrew Hickey and so forth have a great affinity with, and I found them to be really the most knowledgeable people I've ever come across, and I wanted to learn what they had in their brain. Not that I could ever get all that in there.
Well, kudos to you, I reckon. That's a pretty big leap to make. I mean, for lots and lots of reasons, but I think it's a terrific thing to do. And I just can't imagine the day that you went into that marketing job and you thought, wow, can I pull this off? Am I going to be able to do it?
Yeah, it's fairly daunting, but like I say, I've lent on people such as Andrew fairly heavily when I first started. I would ring him day or night and ask him questions and wordings and.
Right. I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 40DB and they're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're talking to my local publican and standout marketing star, Brendon, who has the Get Chopped pub at Greenmount. Okay, so then you decided to get this Get Chopped initiative.
Yes.
Can you explain to me what Get Chopped is? It's not a drug reference, is it?
No, definitely not. It's a hot rod term, but it came about that we recognised through a friend of ours, actually our first athlete that we sponsored, Joel Kelso. He was racing in Europe and had run out of money, and he was a family friend of both myself and Darren, his parents were, and we worked out a way to raise funds to pay for him to stay there and continue on his dream to be in Moto 3, which he is right now, and he'll continue on from there to the Moto GP. But what we worked out, which was a great lesson for all of us, that not everyone at the top of the leaderboard is necessarily the best. When you get to a certain point in sport, and I was fairly lucky because I was never really good at anything, my parents were poor. But if your parents don't have money, you aren't going to continue on in that sport. Once it comes to the point where you need to travel overseas and you need to, do all the rest of it, I think Shane Webke gave the first speech at our first giveaway that we promoted giveaways to raise funds for the athletes, and Shane Webke was our first MC, and he said he had a great affinity with what we were doing because the amount of money when he first got the chance to go to the state, whatever it may have been, it was $400, which was a huge amount of money back then for his family, and they mowed lawns and they did everything for it. So we worked out that without some financial assistance, some of the best in every sport don't get there, which is, it's just a fact of life. If you've got a bunch of money and your family comes from money and you've got a decent talent, you might get to the top, but you can have all the talent in the world and no money, and your parents can't pay for you to go overseas. So we worked out a business model, myself and Darren, whereby we would sell merchandise, T-shirts and the likes of things, and people who bought that merchandise went into the draw to win a $100,000 muscle car, which we restored at the time.
You owned a muscle car?
No, we bought a wreck and restored it, so we employed staff, and it was an entire business model focused around it, and with the profits from that we'd sponsor athletes. So at the time I think we got a maximum of 5 athletes we sponsored at once, which is great. We had local people, Brendon Spain, a young boxer from Caboolture, we have a world's fastest woman, Natisha Dingle. She's in the speed skydiving, going to Arizona in about 5 weeks I think to cement her world record. And Joel Kelso. We just worked out a business model that would pay for us to fund what their parents couldn't.
How did you work out who you were going to sponsor?
Basically those who needed it, but had talent as well. So we, go and watch people, and we had a lot of applications. We also sponsored Corey Anderson, who went to the Olympics for the Paralympics for javelin. When you can see that talent, mum and dad are struggling and working very, very, very hard to pay those bills. That sort of fitted a bill for us.
Well, Sports Darling Downs, which you'd be familiar with, yep. Their breakfasts are a time where they award the money, and you can see these families, they just, the number of events that these kids are going to, and the expense that these parents, and I did interview Sinead Shazelka a little while ago. She's the girl who plays for the Broncos and has played State of Origin and State of Origin, but also the other football game. Sinead, I'm sorry, I can't remember. But anyway, she talked about the just the hours of going to Brisbane 4 times a week
yep.
for training and all of that sort of thing. So you got enough money to sponsor these through this initiative.
Well,
you didn't tell me what the Get Chopped means. It's a muscle car term.
So it's a hot rod term, chopping the roofs on cars and so forth. But the interesting thing was that it has a lot of different connotations for a lot of different markets. So it worked across, people adapt the saying to whatever they want really, and we've sort of pushed it in that way.
Did you run that past Professor Hickey? What do you think of the term Get Chopped, sir?
Actually, Professor Hickey is an extraordinary gentleman, and he's been encouraging me almost to the point of pinning me down to do a master's on Get Shop. So
excellent. I mean, you know all about that.
I don't think I'll ever have the time for that.
So at that stage, we've just got a brand. We've just got this Get Shop brand.
Yep.
What happened after that?
We ended up doing 4 giveaways. So we gave away $200,000 in cash and $200,000 vehicles, and that market became a little bit saturated. There was about 11. We were the first company in Australia to run this business model, and now there's probably about 11. And as we realised that, we pulled out of it. Well, we'd built a very large audience on social media, so the idea was then to work out what to do with that audience, or how to still give benefit to that audience. And it's in the car enthusiast market, and they love venues to go to. They love to take their cars out for a cruise, and they like to sit at a pub and have a pub feed and look at their cars and talk cars.
You had not had any sort of venue at all. You're still working as the marketing guy for this company.
Yep.
And doing this other on the side. When did you first dip your toe into the hospitality industry?
About 12 months ago, we opened a diner in Woodford. And myself, Darren and Fiona got the diner up off the ground and had ended up getting proof of concept that what we were looking at was going to work with the car market. And then we were lucky enough to be involved with beautiful people like Darren, who decided to help myself and Fiona get a venue.
Right, so you've still got the one in Woodford as well?
The one in Woodford at the moment's in redevelopment stage. We're looking at stage 2 of it. It's a huge block, and we sort of closed it at the moment. COVID hit it very hard. The entire town in Woodford got COVID, and all the staff and all the rest of it, and then everyone was too scared to go out, and we burnt quite a bit of cash there.
Right. So in the middle of all of this, COVID and all the rest, you decide to buy the Green Mount Hotel. What
Correct.
was involved in trying to find the right pub, and what were you looking for exactly?
It had to be a venue that was approximately 20 minutes drive from a reasonable sized city, which turns out to be Toowoomba, which is where we grew up, so that was even handy. But we looked at pubs all around Queensland at the time. About 20 minutes drive, nice roads, nice community, and a welcoming community, which Green Mount turned out to be.
And was it a very complicated process trying to buy the pub or looking at different places?
Fairly time consuming, and obviously all of the government side of stuff is fairly laborious. It's fairly detailed and takes probably quite a few months to get a liquor licence organised, but other than that, we just went and looked at pubs basically and had beers there, so it was good.
Well, we've lived here, as I say, since 2008, and I have never seen this pub quite as busy as it has been since you and Fiona have taken over. What do you do you think? It's the marketing,
well, firstly,
big social media presence.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for that. we work about 18 hours a day, but it is the social media presence, and it's also the respect that we've developed within the car enthusiast community, and they are a very benevolent community, and they've come on board to support us, which is fantastic.
But you have to have good food and good service.
We probably have the best chef in the district, without a doubt. There's no two ways about that. We've got a young local chef here, and this is his first time out on his own, and basically giving him charge of the kitchen. So he's very creative and young and enthusiastic, and very proud of what he turns out of the kitchen. So yeah. Big palmies.
What's his signature dish, do you think?
He's got quite a few, and he's every week he's coming up with something new. But he's got his mega palmies, and he's got his giant burgers, and his steaks are just absolutely brilliant. So we're very lucky there. He walked in here a couple of weeks after we purchased the place and asked if there's any jobs going for a chef. So
meant to be, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, isn't that a great story? So we're trying to get car enthusiasts and any sort of people will drive to a country pub to go to a meal, won't they? If they know that the food's good and
That's
it's going to be
correct.
friendly. What about music? Are you sort of...
We do have we've got a local artist here, Doug Gale, who plays here quite often. And today we had another group from Mount Clifton Way, so the Tilbury Green Entertainers.
Great, yeah. And a good crowd?
Brilliant crowd. I think we sort of jokingly called it a 5-day test match from Wednesday through to Sunday, myself and Fiona, because once we get up Wednesday morning, we probably have about 4 hours sleep a night until Sunday.
Well, you did mention that, and I wanted to ask you, you said that you're working about 18 hours a day. How do you sustain the pace, though, Brendon?
Well, we try and keep the pub as quiet as possible on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's what we've worked out.
Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, is there anybody in the pub?
Yeah, there's someone here pretty well from opening every day, so...
Drinking, I mean, or I don't mean working. I mean, how many people would be around, or you just don't know if you're not open?
Yeah, well, no, we open at 12 on Mondays and 10 the rest of the week, and we'll have someone here having a beer from opening every day. So.
I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 4DDB and they're with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're in our segment called Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to our local publican, Brendon, and he's telling me about how furiously hard he works. Do you know much of the history of the Greenmount Hotel?
We've been learning a little bit, but it's very conflicting. Everyone's got their own take on it and what years happened and so forth, but Mick Morgan, who lives across the road from us, he's crowned as unofficially the Greenmount Mayor. He's been here forever, and he's a wealth of information. And I had quite an interesting story last night, because his daughter Tracy is married to a gentleman by the name of Chris Hattie, and Chris Hattie's father had the pub from 1988 to 1990. And Chris would sneak out of his room upstairs and toddle across over to Mick Morgan's house to court his daughter, I suppose, would be the way that they would say it back then.
In polite parlance, yes, yeah. And I was under the impression that the pub had been moved here. Is that correct?
I do believe so. I'm not sure on this one. I think the original one burnt down. Then there was a pub over near the council chambers that they moved up to, which is now the Wheat Chief. But yeah, I get conflicting ones on that. I can't really get a...
I'm sure there'll be some listeners out there listening to you now, Brendon, and they'll probably be able to get in touch with you here at the Greenmount Hotel and tell us some of the history.
And we'd appreciate that. We, like I say, we get a lot of conflicting different stories. So
right, yeah. My brother-in-law, who's an architect, said that the verandas out there wouldn't have been original. That it's not part of the original.
It didn't
building.
have a veranda on it, and it didn't have obviously the wheelchair ramp. That's a new thing these days. It was quite different. I've got some pictures on the wall there of how it looked beforehand. It appears to have been re-stumped and a lot of work done. I do believe the gentleman that we purchased the pub off, Graham McGrath, did quite a lot of work about 10 years ago. So.
Right. And let's just go back to talking about the brand Get Chopped. So it's not just a venue. Are you making films as well?
Oh, we've done a couple of film clips and things like that for local bands, and so obviously as part of my degree I did editing and cinematography. So we've used that to make film clips and the likes to branch in and further promote our brand.
Is it clothing as well? I know it's got.
That's correct. Yeah. So we had a full merchandise range where we were selling t-shirts, hats, wallets, belts. You name it, really. We
had retro women's clothes as well?
No, more active wear for women's we had. So basically we we started off with one t-shirt, ended up with approximately 25 lines of merchandise that we would sell online, and people who purchased our merchandise and supported us and our athletes would go into the draw to win one of our cars.
Wow. Are you still doing the clothing range?
No. We've got our local clothing, souvenir clothing available here, but we've moved.
A bucket hat or two.
Yeah, no, we got a few hats, caps, beanies, and so forth. Yeah.
So you and Fiona are in this together, and you mentioned earlier about your son going to university.
Yep.
And you have a daughter too?
I do. Yeah. I've got a couple of daughters actually. My eldest daughter works for the Heritage Bank, and my youngest daughter, who's in Brisbane, she has cerebral palsy.
Okay, and I've seen your daughter. What's her name again?
Trinity.
Trinity, here in the pub, and she's in a wheelchair.
Yep.
You live upstairs.
Yep.
How does that work?
Carrier.
You carry her and the chair?
I've got a spare chair up there for her. So basically, the motorised wheelchairs, they weigh somewhere in the vicinity of 100 and something kilograms, so they're a little bit heavy to be carting around. So we've got one carried upstairs and we leave one downstairs.
Wow. How's that journey been with Trinity and her cerebral palsy?
Oh, extremely challenging, but extremely educating and beneficial as well.
Tell me a little bit more about that. In what way?
You don't whinge much after that one.
Yeah.
She doesn't whinge, so I've got no right to whinge. It doesn't really matter what it's about.
Yeah. How old is Trinity?
She's 12.
She's 12. And I'm married to someone who has cerebral palsy, and he doesn't talk about it very often, but I know that the teasing and the sort of all of that as a child, and as a parent I can't imagine going through that.
No, that's definitely heartbreaking. Trinity's in a wheelchair. She's non-verbal or partially non-verbal. I can understand a fair bit of what she says, but nobody else really can. So she won't talk in front of people because she's self-conscious about it. But yeah, no, it is heartbreaking. But in recent times, we've seen a great shift in, I guess, tolerance and how people, inclusiveness and how people view other people, which has been great.
Yeah, for sure. I was at the launch of the Business Disability Awards during the week, and the woman Reggie Bird, who has won Big Brother twice. She won it in 2003 and then won it in 2022, and she has retinitis pigmentosa, so she's blind. And there was the talk of, it's all very well that I won this, and but I need a job. She said, I need to have the dignity of work.
Yes,
she needs so. There was a lot of talk about inclusivity and diversity in a workplace, and how people need to sort of think about employing someone, and they don't like to say disability, but so do you? What's the future hold for Trinity, do you think?
Oh, I think she's got a fairly bright future. She's very tenacious and she's got a great personality, and her mother is a great advocate for disability. She ensures that Trinity gets everything that she should be entitled to, and between us we've got a great network of people. I've met a young lady down the Gold Coast, her name's Marlena. She happens to be a journalist who has cerebral palsy, and she has probably fairly more severe than Trinity does, to be honest. Trinity's, like I say, she's in a wheelchair, non-verbal. This lady has more challenges than Trinity, and after I met her, I've learned so much. She's interviewed everyone from the Dalai Lama to the Pope, and she travels the world. She's at rock shows and front row, and she's actually taken quite a few of the companies to court for not including her in the front row of concerts and so forth, and being thrown out by security for wheelchairs not safe here. And she's taken a lot of that. She's the first person in the world to base jump with CV, and she's an extraordinary lady that I met at a TED talk with Steve Wozniak from Apple, and we've remained friends, and she's just fantastic. She's actually got the wheelchair beach mats down there now, down the Gold Coast. And
what does that mean?
She runs her own business. Well, there's a roll-out beach mat so wheelchairs can go right down to the water. She started that business. She's got a jumping castle business. She's a journalist, travels the world, and yeah,
you can
something exciting and learn a lot from someone like that, and understand how someone with a disability can operate in today's society.
Yeah.
And not just operate, but be prosperous.
Yes.
Very prosperous.
Have a
She's
big,
just purchased
big
her
life.
own unit in a high-rise down the coast, and yeah, spectacular.
Does Trinity see her as a bit of a role model, do you think?
Trinity's a little bit, still a little bit stubborn at 12. She doesn't like to be classed as disabled,
Right.
which is fine. She's her own person. She demands to be able to do what all the other kids do, and she goes to a mainstream school. And but yeah, she's still she doesn't like to be labelled. I suppose would be the way to put it.
I like the sound of Trinity. I like her a lot.
She's not too bad. Sometimes she can be a little bit annoying, but she's really good.
I like your honesty, Brendon. Tell me about how you and Fiona met.
Oh, well, we met through mutual friends and went out on a date together and sort of been stuck with each other ever since.
How long ago was that?
6.5 years now.
And she's a hard worker, obviously. Doesn't mind a bit of hard work.
She's come from teacher's aide, was her previous job, so she's done that for 16 years before coming here to the pub.
Yeah. Has she seen the ghost of the Green Mount Hotel?
I think she's fairly well too tired as well. We've had so many people tell us, and I've actually been contacted by a Toowoomba company who's paranormal activity investigators or whatever they might be. They've sent me an email, and I'm actually quite curious about it because I wouldn't mind seeing what sort of equipment they have. And
a Ouija board?
Yeah, or
whatever
I don't know,
else,
whatever they come up with. But yeah, usually by the time we go to bed, it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and I just basically crawl up the stairs and roll into bed.
Have you heard who the ghost is? Yeah.
There's a couple of conflicting ones. Apparently, there's a young girl killed herself upstairs at some point, so it's fairly tragic. But I don't know them. Yeah.
Those people go to the Bull's Head Inn. I know those paranormal people, and they have I think it's like a radio signal-y thing that.
Well, that's what I was interested to look at, what they brought out, but I haven't had a chance to reply to their email, actually.
Okay, right. So we'll keep you posted then. Yeah. Brendon, before I let you go, I usually ask people a couple of questions which are sort of a little bit off topic or on topic, but can I ask you, what was the last thing that made you laugh out loud?
I believe it would have been someone on the phone here at the pub that couldn't believe that a large and medium pizza had the same amount of slices.
Say that again. Someone on the phone said...
Wanted to know how many slices were in a large pizza and how many were in a medium. And when I explained that they were the same amount of slices, I was told that that can't be true because one's larger and one's medium. So, yeah, no, I did laugh about that one.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you would see a lot of characters at the pub.
We do. There's some very beautiful people in this community and some quite funny ones as well.
Funny, yeah. And, I mean, do you find that you're sometimes psychologist and counsellor and... I find that I take other people's problems on board far more than I should. And yeah, it's fairly taxing some days. Fairly taxing. Yeah. When you come to like someone and they're struggling with whatever it may be, I find I take that on board a little bit more than I should. Yeah. The next degree might be a counselling degree or a social work degree. Do you think? Perhaps.
You haven't got
time to be studying at the moment, I wouldn't imagine.
Don't mention that to Andrew Hickey. He's still chasing me on another one.
Well, I'm interested to hear about your masters. You'll be Dr. Brendon soon.
I don't think there'll ever be a time for that.
Well, you never say never.
No.
All right. So, what about another question? Going back to your childhood. Were you obsessed with anything as a child that you can remember?
Would have been the cinema.
The cinema.
Yep.
Yeah. Were you sort of, you had your favourite stars and...
Quite a few of them as kids. I think John Travolta and the likes of that. They were fairly popular with Grease when it came out when I was a kid, and
Saturday Night Fever?
Yeah, Saturday
Were you
Night
allowed
Fever.
to see that?
I was allowed to see it. I got to see a fair few of them. I probably shouldn't have been allowed to.
Yeah.
It was working, of course.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's all an education, isn't it? We can say that. Now, before we wrap up, I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 40dB, 102.7 FM, and we're in our segment Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to the publican from the Greenmount Hotel, and his name is Brendon, and his lovely partner Fiona. All right, I think you have got a few controversial opinions, Brendon, in the time that I've known you, but what would you say would be your most controversial opinion?
Potentially, what I have learnt through my marketing degree is never to talk about controversial things when possible, but I would have to say it would be youth justice. I am a firm believer that unless someone's committed a capital crime as a youth, as in 18, there should be a mandatory short sentence, enough for them to go to jail and have a respectful fear of jail, not long enough for them to get there and become part of the jail family. So I know everyone screams that youth crime's out of control at the moment, which it is. I fully agree that it is, but to put these kids in prison is not the answer, in my opinion.
So I'm not sure that I understand. You're saying they should go to prison, or they shouldn't?
I think if they go to prison, it should be a mandatory 8 months, 6 months for their first offence.
Right.
It shouldn't be able to give an 18-year-old 5 years jail or 2 years jail. That they then become a part of the system, which is almost impossible to break, and that life has been destroyed, which could have been saved.
Have you found that if you've brought that up somewhere that you do meet with resistance, that it is a controversial opinion?
It depends on your circle, of course, but I think a lot of people just want to see, social media is a haven for it. Lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. But they don't understand what that's doing to that life.
Institutionalising that person.
You got to look at the root cause, not locking people up isn't a solution. Like, look at America, like, it's not. Our jails are full. These kids, once they spend 2 years in jail, they're definitely going back. They definitely become comfortable with the system and probably learn a fair bit in there to do other crimes. Yeah,
the recidivism is very high for people that have been in jail. I think Andrew Hickey was working on a bike restoration course.
Fantastic
at one stage,
project,
with the high schools having that meaningful something to do, and
a fantastic project, and Andrew's is absolutely a superstar in my eyes for the work he does.
Who your next wife's going to be? It's going to be Andrew Hickey, I'm sure.
I've been trying to get him out here to play.
Oh, yes.
Because he's also a brilliant guitarist and musician, so I've been trying to get him out here, but he's dodging me at the moment. No.
Okay, this is a public call for Andrew Hickey to be coming out to the Greenmount Hotel. He's got 2 big fans here.
No, I think the poor bugger's as busy as I am. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, talking about music and songs, what's the song that you can't stay off the dance floor if it comes on the jukebox?
Oh wow, that's a tough question. I think anything from In Excess, I guess, and it probably depends on the time of the evening.
How many liquid angles have been imbibed?
That's that correct. Yeah, usually, yeah.
So anything from In Excess, that's your era?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I sort of grew up in the 80s music and love In Excess and the story behind it, and yeah.
Yeah, not the end part.
No, it was quite a sad day.
Yes, yeah. He was a really, really interesting, such an interesting childhood, Michael Hutchins. Grew up, spent a long time in Hong Kong. I think his mother lived over there, and his twin brother, Rhett. Yeah, very... not twin brother, but his brother, yeah, very interesting. So just before I let you go, we were talking before about the Get Chopped brand. Is it events as well? When you said about In Excess, I started to think about music festivals and being up at Noosa for those music festivals, the early music festivals, yeah.
And we've run quite a few large events, actually, ranging from 1,000 to 5,000 people. And at the moment, we're planning an event here for Greenmount, which is the Greenmount Billy Cart Challenge. So we've formed an incorporation. We're just waiting on the red tape bit, which is Get Chop Community Events, and we will present that in Greenmount and closing off the streets and creating a huge community event that will be a yearly event. We've brought in Patricia Chant, who's the president of the Leeburn Sprint. She's the president now of Get Chop Community Events Incorporated, and we've formed a committee with local residents and with Tricia in charge of us all, because she's the person for the job.
Oh, brilliant. So we're going to have a billy cart race.
Yep.
And raise money for
the local school and the community hall here.
Good
So
for you.
we're fairly excited about it. We feel like it's taking forever at the moment because we're waiting on our incorporation and we can't do the insurance and the street closures and everything until that is finalised. But we've got quite a bit of time. It's going to be on the first Saturday of every May, so we've still got plenty of time. And if we do miss out on this round of community grants from the council, we've got quite a few big sponsors, so we'll be right.
Well, you've heard it here first, folks. It's the, what's it called? Billy Cart Challenge?
Greenmount Billy Cart Challenge. So there'll be categories that involve everyone from the smallest kids up to the biggest kids, as in the adults. We've got quite a huge support from the drag racing community. We've got 5 or 6 big builders in that are already planning their carts, and local businesses like Salvy's Towing and Excel Paint and Panel are all on board, and yeah.
What can a billy cart have or not have? I'm presuming it can't have a motor.
It can't have a motor. There's a weight limit, which I believe I'd have to read back through the rules. I've been too busy doing the other stuff. But I believe it's an 80 kilogram weight limit without the driver. There is dimensions. There's quite a lot involved. So we plan to have prizes and everything from the kids through building stuff at home with their dad to these guys in the drag racing community who are sort of have a bigger budget.
Yeah. Well, Brendon, I reckon if anyone's going to do the Greenmount Billy Cart Challenge, it's going to be you, if you're true to form of the other things that I've seen you do. So all the best with that. Get building, get your spare wheels from the golf cart and and a box.
Thank you very much. No, we'll get it across the line. There's still an extremely large amount of work to be done in the next what it might be 10 months. But we're all up to the task. We have the best person on the job is Tricia Chan as the head of our incorporation. So she hands us out jobs on a regular basis. And
is there a job for the person with the checkered flag?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I take that job?
I reckon you can.
All right. That's good. I want to be the mayor of Greenmount.
You'll have to fight Mick Morgan.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. All right. Final question. Who is your favourite royal?
I would have to say Princess Diana.
Diana?
Yeah.
Please explain.
She's done amazing work for a lot of different causes, many more than you could count. She also was a victim of what we call the royal family.
The what are they called? The machine,
the business, or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. So I think you've got great empathy for what she may have went through and the work that she's done in the community in general.
The firm.
That's the firm, is it? The firm, yes.
So Princess Diana.
I don't have a lot of time for the rest of it. But
well, I think I always say that it's very telling when people say who their favourite royal is, because they always justify it because of their own beliefs. And I think that's a lovely story to hear you say that you loved her work ethic and and what she stood for. Yeah.
She done a lot of good for a lot of people, and I suppose in one sense stood up to the as you call it, the firm. The machine that it is that seems to be able to protect their own and do whatever they want with impunity.
But you would find the marketing of the royal family quite interesting, I would imagine.
I do. They make a few mistakes, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
If they need a little advisor from little old Greenback, you might be going over and giving them a hand. Do you think, Brendon?
I think they got their hands full. I think when I say they make a few mistakes, I think the workload would be extremely. As far as damage control and crisis management goes, it's an extremely big task.
Well, I think once they got rid of Fergie and the toe sucking, the damage control probably was ramped down a little bit, perhaps, do you think?
Well, I'm not sure. I think they've had a fair bit on since then.
Oh, well, that's true. Yes, if we're talking Andrew and the rest. All right. Yes. Well, Brendon, thank you so much for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk. It's really been wonderful to hear about your journey from the Strand to Get Chopped and everything in between, and it's been a real privilege to hear about your life so far. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, let's go have a beer.
Sounds good to me.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.